Hey everybody, reading you chapter 1 from my book, The Fire and the Hound. The wind moved through the trees like a living thing sliding between trunks, whispering across the frozen ground. The wolf lifted his nose to the air, every scent cutting through the cold like a blade. Snow, pine, the faint scent, musk of a deer herd long gone. Nothing. He hadn't eaten in 3 days. The world around him was nothing but hunger and silence. The pack had split after the chase, the young ones too desperate, the old ones too tired. He had run until his lungs burned, until the blood on the snow lost its smell, and he was alone. The sky had that endless gray look that came before a storm. Clouds sagged low, full of cold and weight, the kind of winter that erased tracks and ended lives. He padded deeper into the pines, paws pressing through the crust of ice, fur dusted white. His ribs ached from the hollow inside of him. The world offered him nothing. Not a mole, not a rabbit, not even the sound of wings. He stopped and listened. The forest had voices, if you knew how to listen to them. Snow creaked, wind talked. Somewhere far off, a branch cracked and fell. But no heartbeats, no life, only the ache of winter. He turned towards the mountains. There was shelter there. Caves, dry stone, maybe bones of some old kills. He could last another day, maybe 2, if he found something dead before he froze to death. A raven followed him for a while, black against the white, but it kept its distance. It laughed at him once, sort of a dry rattle, before flying ahead. Ravens always know when death is close. The wolf's breast steamed as he climbed. The pines thinned, giving way to rocks glazed with ice. Below him he saw a world of white. Rivers were solid. Valleys looked asleep. And he was about to give up when the wind changed. Something new rode on it. Sharp and strange. Not a deer, not an elk, but it was a smell he knew. And he understood it well. It was smoke. He froze, his ears forward. That smell had no place in the forest. He'd smelled it before, miles away, when the pack had found blackened trees and strange bones that smelled of meat and ash. They had avoided it. The young ones had whimpered, the elders had turned back. But hunger erases fear. The wolf lowered his head and followed the scent. It grew stronger every step, curling through the air like a trail of heat. Beneath it came something else, the smell of meat, burned, salted, and rich. His mouth watered, his heartbeat quickened. The trees opened into a hollow, and he saw the first flicker of a light reached out to him through the branches. Orange, alive, and unnatural. It danced and snapped in the dark. The smell was overwhelming now. His stomach cramped so hard it felt like claws from the inside. He crouched, watching shapes as they moved through the light. Upright, 2-legged, wrapped in hides. Humans. They were smaller than the stories his instincts told him about, but louder. Their voices cracked and echoed. They laughed and pointed, passing food from hand to hand. The wolf had never been this close. Every part of him screamed for him to turn back. But one of the humans tossed something, a bone, still red with meat and fat, into the snow. It hissed as it landed. The wolf's pupils widened. His hunger and his fear waned inside him like two storms. He crept forward, one paw, then another. Snow whispered beneath him. Humans kept talking, unaware, or maybe they were aware. Maybe they wanted him closer. Another scrap landed. Then another. The wolf stopped, breath steaming, heart hammering. The smell was unbearable. He lunged, snatched the bone, and ran back into the shadows. Behind him, the firelight danced on human faces. Not angry, not afraid, almost curious. He stopped once he was far enough, dropped the bone, and tore into it. It tasted to him like fire and blood mixed together. His whole body shivered. He had eaten again. He would last another night. But in the distance behind the fire, one of the humans was watching him. A man with a scar across his jaw and eyes that caught the light like ice. He didn't move. He didn't speak. He only smiled. And though the wolf didn't yet understand, the world had just changed. Two predators had seen each other and decided not to run. Fire and the Hound, Chapter 2. The Campfire. The fire was alive. It breathed and crackled and whispered. Not like wind or water, but something new. Something that chose to live. The wolf watched from the trees, eyes reflecting the orange light. Every instinct told him to stay hidden, yet hunger and curiosity had learned to share the same body. He came again the next night, and the night after that. Always the same. Scraps of bone were thrown into the dark, soft voices and laughter that didn't sound like threat. The humans had begun to expect him. Some pointed. One, the scarred man, would always be the one to feed him. He was taller than the rest, broad shoulders. The others moved when he moved. His scent carried no fear. The wolf didn't yet realize or understand leadership, but he knew this one mattered. Each night the distance between them shrank, a few steps at a time. On the fifth night, the wolf stayed in the open. The firelight painted his fur in gold and shadow. The humans spoke in their strange rhythm, their words low and slow. One of the women, with hair braided with feathers, hummed while she worked. The sound was like a stream under ice. The scarred man tore a piece of meat from his meal and tossed it close. The wolf flinched but didn't run. He stepped forward, teeth bared just enough to remind him he was a wolf. He ate slow, eyes never leaving the man. The man didn't move. When the meat was gone, the wolf lingered. The warmth of the fire had reached him. It was a warmth different from the sun. It didn't fade when night drew deep. He stretched closer and cautious until the edge of the heat brushed his nose. It didn't burn, not yet. He sat watching the flames as they twisted and rose, mesmerized. The man looked at him, not as prey, not as a rival, but something familiar. He spoke, a low, quiet sound that meant nothing and everything. The tone carried calm and welcome. The wolf tilted his head. The word repeated. The man pointed to himself. Aru. he said. Then he pointed to the wolf. The wolf blinked, confused. The man tried again. Aru. He pointed at the wolf. Rope. The wolf didn't know what the sounds meant, but he remembered them. The rhythm was something that might one day mean friend. That night the wolf did not leave. He slept near the fire, not beside it, but close enough to feel the heat and far enough to flee if needed. When he woke, frost glimmered on the ground and the humans were stirring. They packed hides, bone knives, and spears tipped with flint. The fire was crushed under the snow until it hissed out, leaving only a dark scar in the earth. They were moving. The wolf followed from a distance, silent as smoke. As he watched them walk through the valley, strange creatures, fragile but clever. They didn't see with their noses or hear whimpers from the forest, yet they survived. That was power too. He tracked them until sun fell. When they stopped again, the scarred man, Aru, looked over his shoulder straight towards the trees. He tossed another piece of meat into the dark and smiled. The wolf stayed where he was. He didn't eat it that night. He didn't need to. Trust, like the fire, took time to catch. Chapter 3, The Fire and the Hound. Snow had fallen in the night, clean and sharp. The world was quiet again, a silence so heavy it pressed against the ears. The humans moved through it like ghosts, wrapped in hides, their breathing pluming in the dawn. And behind them, at a careful distance, padded the wolf. For days he had followed, never too close, never too far. They knew he was there. They left no sign of fear, no thrown stones, and no shouts. Each morning when the fire was stamped out, Aru would glance back, a silent invitation the wolf didn't yet understand. The wolf hunted for himself at first, chasing small things, rabbits, rats, half-frozen birds, but hunger never stayed away long. One morning the pack of humans found tracks of an elk, new in the snow, fresh and large. Aru lifted a hand. The humans fanned out, silent, moving with the same precision as wolves. The wolf watched from the ridge. He recognized the shape of a hunt, even with the strange tools they were using, spears instead of teeth, fire instead of fury. The elk herd stood grazing in the valley below, steam rising from their bodies like breath. The humans waited, downwind, patient, eyes narrowed. Aru made a soft noise, a low hum from the back of his throat. The wolf's ears twitched. He knew that sound. It meant wait. Something passed between them then. A thread of instinct stretched across the snow. The wind shifted. The elk lifted their heads. Aru's hands dropped. The world exploded. Humans burst from the trees, shouting, waving fire. The elk bolted, and the wolf ran too. But he didn't run away. He ran with them. He darted through the chaos, slipping between the legs, teeth flashing. He cut off one cow that tried to break from the herd, snapping her flank, driving her towards the waiting hunters. A spear flew, then another. the air filled with the sound of death. Hooves, shouts, and the final breath of prey. The wolf leapt, sinking his teeth into the warm flesh as the beast went down, and it was over. The valley smelled of iron and smoke. The humans stood around their kill, panting, blood steaming on their hands. Aru turned. The wolf stood 10 paces away, muzzle red, chest heaving. The humans looked to their leader, waiting to see what he'd do. Aru did not raise a spear. He didn't shout. Instead, he knelt in the snow, cut a strip from the carcass, and tossed it towards the wolf. The wolf didn't hesitate. He stepped forward, slow and certain, took it from the snow between them. No running this time, no fear. They respected each other. Only the rhythm of breath and the smell of victory shared. The others watched in silence. The woman with feathers in her hair murmured something, the first word of a language no one had spoken before. Roke, the word for wolf. And so it began, not with chaos, not with training, with a kill, a name, and a promise. The wolf lay beside the fire that night, closer than ever before. Aru's hand rested half on the spear, and the wolf's paw rested near his foot. 2 hunters, 1 flame. For the first time in history, the forest had 2 hearts beating as one. The Fire and the Hound, Chapter 4, Blood and Trust. The snow melted slowly, turning to mud where the fires had burned. The air smelled of wet earth, smoke, and something else. The coming of spring. In the first time in weeks, humans smiled easily. The hunt had gone well. There was meat hanging from branches, and bones cracked for marrow. The wolf, Roke they called him, stayed in the camp now. Not tamed, not owned, just there. He slept near the fire's edge, close enough to feel the warmth, far enough to leave when he wished. The children crept near him sometimes, laughing and bold, tossing bits of bone and hide. He'd watch them, slow golden eyes, patient, quiet, neither threat nor pet. At night, when the wind howled, he'd lift his head to answer. It wasn't the full cry of wolf anymore, not quite. It was something in between worlds. One morning before dawn, the sound came again. Not his voice this time, but another. Distant, sharp, familiar. A pack's howl. Roke froze, ears twitching towards the ridge. The call came again, closer now, and beneath it he could hear the language of wolves. Where are you? Why do you hide among them? Come back. The humans stirred in their shelters. Aru rose, spear in hand, scanning the darkness. Wolves appeared at the edge of the trees. Lean, gray shadows moving as one. They were his old pack, the survivors. They saw him instantly. The alpha female barked a command, low and guttural. Roke stood, his tail lifted halfway, torn between submission and defiance. The pack fanned out. Their eyes shone like wet stone. They knew what he smelled like now. Human. Aru shouted. The hunters gathered. They grabbed spears and formed a line. Spears raised, the wolves circled, snarling, but it was a standoff. Two tribes, both made of hunters, both sure of their claim to the forest. The alpha lunged, rope midair. They hit the ground, an explosion of teeth and snow. The pack howled. The humans yelled. It was total chaos. Roke fought with everything he had. She was faster, stronger, and fueled by betrayal. But he had learned something new. Not to fight for just himself, but for them. Aru's spear flashed through the dark, missing by inches the alpha female. She clamped her jaws down on Roke's shoulder. He yelped, spun, and bit down hard. Not on her throat, but her leg. He didn't want to kill her. He drove her back. Blood hit the snow, red against white. The pack hesitated, their leader limping and growling, confused. Aru stepped forward, firebrand in one hand, spear in the other. The light flared, orange, alive, and terrifying. The wolves broke and vanished into the trees, their howls fading into the distance. Silence fell again. Only the crackle of the fire and Roke's panting. He staggered, blood on his fur. Aru approached slowly, lowering his spear. The wolf bared his teeth once. It was a reflex, then sagged to the ground. Aru knelt beside him, tore a strip of hide from his own cloak, and pressed it against the wound. The wolf growled low, but he didn't bite. Aru met his eyes and said a single word, softly and steadily. Brother. The tribe murmured, some fearful, some awed, but no one stopped him. That night Roke lay near the fire again, the scent of healing herbs and ash thick in the air. Aru sat beside him, silent, watching the flames twist upwards. Beyond the light, the forest whispered, the voices of the wild calling him back. But Roke did not move. He had chosen his pack. Fire and the Hound, Chapter 5, The Song of the Hound. The thaw came with thunder. Snow turned to the rivers to mud. Forest woke up from its long sleep, dripping and alive again. Green tips pushed through the gray. The air smelled of earth and rain. But in the middle of all that new life, one of the hunters lay dying. His name was Marn. He was the youngest of Aru's men. He had fallen during the elk chase. Pierced by a broken horn, the wound festered. No herbs helped. No chance eased the fever. He slipped away at dawn, his breath rattling his chest until it didn't anymore. The tribe gathered under a sky heavy with clouds. They had no word for death yet, only gestures and silence. Roke sat near the body, tail still, eyes fixed. He didn't understand human weeping, but he knew what it meant to lose one of your own. The scent was the same across all creatures. Sorrow and finality. Aru knelt beside the dead man and touched his forehead. Then he looked to Roke. The wolf stood, walked forward, and laid down beside the body. No one had called him in. No one had taught him this. He simply knew. When the fire was lit and the tribe began to mourn their chant, low and rhythmic, the first music born of grief, Roke lifted his head. and howled. It wasn't the sound of wild hunger or a pack call. It was something new, a sound that rose out of loss and became a bridge between two worlds. The tribe fell silent. The fire snapped and spat. The howl went on, deep and long, wrapping around the valley until it touched every tree, every stone. Even the ravens stilled on their branches. Aru closed his eyes and felt the sound inside his chest, not as a noise but as a truth. When the howl ended, Roke stood and pressed his head against the man's arm one last time. He stepped back into the shadows. That night no one slept. The storm came, washing away the footprints, the blood, the fire ash. But in the morning, the tribe found something strange. The wolf had returned. He had dragged branches and brush along with the place Marn had fallen, covering the scent of death. Aru stared at the mound, rough, clumsy, but deliberate. He understood. That day the humans did the same for their dead, covering a body with stone and earth, and making the place fire-blackened wood. A ritual had begun. And when the last ember cooled, Aru raised his hands toward the forest and said quietly, "Roke." And from far away an answering howl rose, the same voice, carrying through the rain. The tribe moved on, but the sound followed them for generations. Children were taught when the fire crackled. Roke watched from the dark, guarding them still. And when a hunter died, his brother would call into the night, not to the gods, not to the stars, but to the first friend man ever had. The howl was not a warning anymore. It was a remembrance. It was a prayer.
Follow TicBite NC on YouTube.